It's incredible. Getting back to your book, A Bridge Across the Generation Gap, the Child Development Projects, why is child development so important?
It is the most, one might say, almost the most underrated issue in our society. To me, it is like concrete. You can mold concrete in the early stages, but once it's a few days old, you have to take a sledgehammer. And once it's a few years old, a diamond drill. And how we shape the early personality is so important. And we are, as in another section in the book, inside this beautiful drum, 44-gallon drum. There are a few holes, and we look through the world, and we believe what we see is the world, but it is not, unless we come out of the drum and look at the real world. And this is so very difficult.
I'm sure if anybody reads the book, they'll understand exactly what you're getting at there. One of the things I find a little difficult is at what age should a child be taken interest by adults? I mean, most times you can't understand children, or you can't communicate until they are around about 4 years of age because they can't communicate themselves.
You start communicating well before they're born. Here again, we are in an area which is completely new, but evidence has already been accumulated. If you look at the works by people like Joseph Chilton Pearce, a certain Dr. Thomas has done some 6 years of research into the influences on the fetus inside the womb. And what happens is quite unbelievable. You start communicating before they are born. You continue during the birth process and during the earliest days.
In what form does this communication take?
It is almost a supernatural process. Communicating means to feel good about the fetus inside here. That's where it starts. When it's born, touching, skin contact, eye contact, and the confidence that this new baby is going to be a wonderful person someday in the future. You see, when we take the baby's head into our hands, we have between our hands the most complicated matter in the known universe. And how much do we use? Some people believe 10%. Others believe much less. 0.1% is the lowest estimate I heard of, Tony Buzan. And you see, here it comes back to psychotherapy. If we talk about this long scale, you see, every step towards this end, to the positive end, is a process of enrichment, gives us more potential, more fulfilling. We are more satisfied with our lives. We are becoming more successful people and more productive for ourselves and for society.
That brings me back to the next question, and it is on page 12 of your book. You related a rather graphic example of an experiment by 2 French scientists in what could possibly be interpreted as power of suggestion. I was wondering if you could tell the audience about this.
This took place early in this century. You said it was related to me by a pupil of Cuvier. Cuvier was in the last century the old French pioneer, one might say, in what we know as modern hypnotherapy. Those scientists, just briefly, they persuaded a convicted murderer that he was going to die because they were testing how much blood he would have to lose, a person would have to lose before he died. And so, with a special arrangement, and they had his arms sort of sticking out, and the blood was flowing into a bucket, you see, dropping into a bucket, you see. And after a while, one said to the other, "Hey, look, he is getting pale now. I'll give him another minute or so and he'll be dead." He was right. A minute later, the man was dead. He had lost so much blood. But in reality, he had not lost one drop of blood, because they had a sort of gadget under the table, and water dropped into a bucket. He murdered or killed himself, or committed suicide, name it what you will, because his concentrated mind said to him, "Listen, you are going to die," and he did.
Power of
Now,
suggestion.
the whole principle, you see, this I came across this story after World War II when I was sort of in a state of complete confusion, dissociation, disillusionment, and that became a milestone in my whole thinking, because I thought, if it is possible for a person to kill himself with the power of mind, should not the opposite also be true? And should we not be able, with the power of the mind, to enrich our lives and become so much better people?
Until a few years ago, it was believed that the perfect child was seen but not heard, always doing what it was told without questioning. I have my views on that, but I'm interested in your views. How does this fit into your topic and this tonight?
We are in child development. We usually swing from one end. You know, the pendulum swings from one extreme to the other. And to be not heard and not seen. How do you feel as a child if you're not what was it again? Not
Seen,
heard
but
but
not
seen
yes.
only. You see, on the other extreme you have the idea of complete let them do what they like type of thing. You see. And the balance is usually somewhere in the center. It is different for every child. But the trouble is, we will never be able to tell in advance what is exactly the right approach by this parent for this child. You see, child upbringing is, imagine you are in a completely dark room, and there is somewhere a target, and you have a bow and arrow. And you're standing in this completely dark room, or blindfolded, if you like, and you want to shoot you want to hit the target. You have no idea where the thing is. That is to be child upbringing. But we have a few ideas where we can say, here are principles which will foster a functional and useful human being, and there are certain principles. It's a self-esteem, one of the very important ones. And to be able to put them into their place, set limits, but also give them the freedom to explore. And without push, enrich their lives. Give them the opportunity, rather, to explore their potential.
Peter, do you have a final message for us to think about?
That's a difficult one, isn't it? Final message. Well, there are people in this world nowadays who are great teachers. I'll give you one example. Rusty Schweikart was one of the people who went to the moon. And when he came back, he said, you see in space the Earth, this wonderful planet, the best planet known to man. And then from outer space you think, what happens on this planet? And how do people behave? My Jesus is the right one, yours is the wrong one. This politician, but I'm from this country, you're from that. It is so incredibly false and so wrong and so destructive when you look at it from outer space. And the most important message could be this, that we should lift ourselves from our little existence out into, say, take a helicopter view. What are the important issues in the world?
And children would have to be one of them. And do you believe that there is some validity in the expression, one way of putting it, give me a child until they're 7 years old and I will give you the adult?
Once the concrete is set, it is set. And the trouble is we do not know that we have a certain shape, a certain form. We do not know. This is us. If we have been educated in a certain way and we have our set of values, of opinions and attitudes, whatever it is, abilities as well, this is our blueprint. But we are in our own capsules, in our own world, and we don't realize, we could never realize, that every other person has a completely different view, a completely different appreciation of life, a completely different model of the world. And to realize this and to bridge out to others to enrich our lives. That is perhaps the most important message these days.
Thank you, Peter. I have been talking with Peter Schmedding, the author of The Bridge Across the Generation Gap.